The red sun hung in the sky like a dying fire, getting smaller and darker each day. On the planet below, tall crystal towers that once reached toward the stars now cracked and fell. The wind howled through empty streets where millions of bird-like creatures called Zephyrians once lived and sang. Elder Vexara stood on the highest tower that still remained standing. Her blue and silver feathers, once bright and beautiful, now looked dull and tired. She was very old, even for a Zephyr, and had seen many good times and bad times, but nothing as bad as this. Elder, whispered a young Zephyrian named Crintal, as he flew up to her. His wings were smaller than they should be for someone his age. Like all the young ones, he had not grown properly because there was not enough food or clean air. The machine that talks to other worlds is working again. Vexara nodded slowly. For weeks, they had been trying to fix their communication system. It was their last hope to call for help from other planets and other peoples across the galaxy. The Zephyrians were smart and had built many wonderful things. But their son was dying too fast for them to save themselves. She followed Crintal down the crystal stairs to the communication room. The walls were covered with glowing crystals that had once been bright blue and green. Now they flickered weakly, like candles in the wind. Only a few other Zephyrians were there. Where once hundreds worked in this room, now there were only 12. "Show me," Vexara said. An old engineer named Vecarone pointed to a screen with shaking claws. "We can reach 17 different star systems. Elder, we have been sending our call for help for 20 days now." Vexara looked at the list of worlds they had contacted. She knew many of them. Rich planets with billions of people, strong military forces, advanced technology that could easily save the Zephyrians if they wanted to. Have any answered? She asked, though her heart already knew. 3 have answered, Decaron said quietly. They all said the same thing. He played the messages. Each one was different words, but the same meaning. The Zephyrians were not worth saving. It would cost too much, take too long, use too many resources. The galaxy had something called the Galactic Council that made decisions about these things. They used mathematics and computers to decide who lived and who died, according to their calculations. Saving 1,000 Zephyrians would cost more than building a new space station. The numbers did not make sense to them. "What about the others?" Vexara asked. "The 14 worlds that have not answered." "Still waiting," Crintal said. "But Elda, I do not think they will help either." Vexara walked to the big window that looked out over their dying world. In the distance, she could see the sea that had once been blue and full of life. Now it was gray and empty. The fish had died when the water became too cold. The plants had died when there was not enough sunlight. Soon, the Zephyrians would die too. Below the tower, she could see the other survivors moving slowly through the streets. Some were trying to fix broken buildings. Others were gathering the last food from storage rooms. A few were just sitting, waiting for the end to come. Children played in small groups, but their games were quiet now. They did not fly high anymore because the air was getting too thin. Their parents watched them with sad eyes, knowing these might be their children's last days. "How many of us are left?" Vexara asked. 847, Vex answered. "We lost 12 more yesterday." 847. Once, their world had been home to 3 billion Zephyrians. Cities of crystalline light had covered 3 continents. Their artists had created music that could make the very stones dance. Their scientists had unlocked the secrets of making crystal grow into any shape they wanted. Now they were just a number on a galactic report, too small to matter, too few to save. "Keep sending the messages," Vexara ordered. "Every hour, to every world we can reach." But Elder Crintal said sadly, "No one is going to help us. The galaxy has made its choice." Vexara touched the young Zephyrian's wing gently. "Maybe you are right. Maybe no one will come. But we must try until our last breath. That is what makes us who we are." She looked up at their dying sun one more time. In a few weeks, maybe less, it would collapse completely. When that happened, their world would become a frozen ball of ice floating in space. The Zephyrians would become just another extinct species that the galaxy had forgotten. But they would not give up. They would keep calling out to the stars, hoping that somewhere in the vast darkness, someone would hear them. Someone would care enough to try. What they did not know was that their messages were traveling farther than they thought, reaching places they had never heard of. And on one small blue planet, far away, people who were considered primitive and unimportant by the galactic community were listening. And unlike the others, these people were going to answer. Captain June sat in his chair on the space station, staring at the screen that showed strange signals coming from far away. He had been working at Deep Space Station Alpha for 3 years, and most days were boring. Ships came and went. Messages traveled between planets. Nothing exciting ever happened, but today was different. "Captain," said Officer Nari, a young woman who worked the night shift listening to space radio. "You need to hear this." She played a sound that made June's skin feel cold. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, like a song, but also like someone crying for help. The voice was not human. It was higher and had strange musical notes that humans could never make. "What is it?" June asked. "It's a distress call," Nari explained, "but not from any ship. It's coming from a planet called Kepler 44b. The computer says it's 37 light-years away." Officer Yan looked up from his desk where he had been studying the signal. He was good with languages and computers. "I ran it through our translation system. It's a species called Zephyrians. They're asking for help. Their sun is dying and they're all going to die with it." June felt his stomach drop. "How many of them?" "About 800 left. But Captain... Yan's voice got quiet. "I also checked the Galactic Council database. They've already decided not to help. The Galactic Council was like a government for the galaxy, but they only cared about the big, powerful planets. Earth was still new to space travel, so the Council treated humans like children. They gave Earth permission to explore nearby systems, but they were not allowed to make big decisions." "Why won't they help?" June asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Too expensive," Yan said. "Not enough. Zephyrians left to be worth saving. The report says it would cost more to save them than they would contribute to galactic society." June stood up and walked to the big window that showed the stars. Somewhere out there, 800 people were waiting to die. Not because it was impossible to save them, but because someone had decided they were not worth the cost. "Sir," Nari said carefully, "what are we going to do?" June thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was only 6 years old. What would he tell her if she asked why they let people die when they could have helped? How could he explain that some lives were worth more than others? "Get me Admiral J on Earth," he said. "Emergency channel." It took 20 minutes for the call to go through. Admiral J appeared on the screen, looking tired. She had been working late again, planning humanity's next exploration missions. "Captain June," she said, "this better be important." "Admiral, we've received a distress call from a dying world. The Galactic Council has refused to help. I'm requesting permission to call an emergency meeting of Earth's Colonial Council." Admiral J leaned forward. "How many people are we talking about?" 847 Zephyrians, on Kepler 44b. "And the Council's reason for refusing? Economic factors. They say it's not worth the resources." Admiral J was quiet for a long moment. June could see her thinking. Finally, she nodded. "I'll make the call. Stand by." 6 hours later, representatives from every human colony and Earth itself were connected by video link. Presidents, governors, and military leaders from dozens of worlds filled June's screen. The debate started immediately. "We can't afford this kind of mission," argued Governor Park from the Mars colony. "We're still building our own worlds. The Galactic Council has made their decision, added President Kim from Europa Station. Who are we to disagree? But Captain Lee from the asteroid mining station spoke up. Since when do we let other people decide what's right and wrong for us? My grandfather died fighting for the freedom to make our own choices. This could hurt our relationship with the Council, warned another voice. Admiral J raised her hand for silence. Let me ask a simple question. If it was us out there, dying while the galaxy watched, what would we want them to do? The video conference went quiet. June could see people thinking about their own families, their own children, all in favor of launching a rescue mission. Admiral J asked. One by one, hands went up on screens across the galaxy. Mars, Europa, the asteroid belt, Earth's moon, the farming colony on Kepler 186f, even the tiny research station orbiting Proxima Centauri. Every single hand was raised. Motion carried, Admiral J announced. Captain June, how long do those people have? June looked at Ian's calculations. Maybe 6 weeks before their sun collapses completely. Then we better move fast. I'm ordering every available ship to rendezvous at Luna Station. We're going to save those people. As the conference ended, June felt something he had not felt in a long time. Pride. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had written off the Zephyrians with cold mathematics. But humanity, still young and small and considered primitive by galactic standards, was going to risk everything to save strangers they had never met. Sir, Nari said quietly, do you really think we can do it? June smiled. We're about to find out. The human rescue fleet looked small and weak floating in space near Luna Station. 5 ships that were not built for war or rescue missions. The New Dawn was Admiral J's command ship, but it was really just a research vessel with some weapons added. The other 4 ships were even worse. 2 old cargo haulers that usually carried food between colonies, and 2 mining ships that had never traveled farther than the asteroid belt. This is what we're taking to save 800 people? Asked Captain Min, looking at the other ships through her window. Her ship, the Hope Runner, was one of the cargo vessels. It smelled like the vegetables it usually carried, and half the systems made strange noises. It's what we have, Admiral J answered over the radio. Chief Engineer Tay, what's the status on the life support modifications? Tay was floating in zero gravity inside the cargo hold of the Hope Runner, surrounded by pipes and machines. He had been working for 3 days straight, trying to build systems that could keep Zephyrians alive. The bird-like aliens needed different air, different temperature, and different pressure than humans. It's not going to be comfortable, Tay said, wiping sweat from his face. The Zephyrians need air that's mostly nitrogen and methane. That stuff will kill us in seconds. So I'm building sealed sections inside each cargo hold. The walls are thin and the temperature control is basic, but it should work. Should work? Asked Dr. Su, who was floating nearby with a tablet full of medical information. These people are dying. We need better than should work. Then you build it, Tay snapped. He was tired and stressed. I'm doing the best I can with duct tape and spare parts. Dr. Su felt bad immediately. I'm sorry. I know you're working hard. I'm just worried about them. Admiral J's voice came over the radio again. People, we have a problem. 3 Galactic Council ships are moving to intercept us. They're trying to stop us from reaching the Zephyrians. Everyone stopped what they were doing. The Galactic Council had the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy the human fleet in minutes. Their shields could stop anything humans could throw at them. What do they want? Asked Captain Yoon from the mining ship Iron Will. They're saying we're interfering with natural evolutionary processes, Admiral J said. Her voice sounded angry. They want us to turn around and go home. Captain Min looked at her crew. They were all volunteers, people who had left their jobs and families to help strangers they had never met. Her pilot was a farmer from Mars. Her engineer used to fix water pumps on Europa. None of them were soldiers. Admiral Min said, "What are your orders?" There was a long pause. Everyone waited to hear what Admiral J would say. Would they fight? Would they run? Would they give up? "We scatter," Admiral J finally said. "Each ship takes a different route to Kepler 44 to be. They can't follow all of us. Some of us might not make it, but some of us will. And if they try to stop us?" asked Captain Yoon. "Then we remind them that humans are very stubborn." The human ships separated, each one heading in a different direction through space. The council ships were faster and stronger, but they had to choose which human ships to chase. They couldn't catch them all. Captain Min's ship, the Hope Runner, took the longest route. They flew through 3 different star systems, hiding behind planets and asteroids. Twice, council ships came close enough to scan them, but Min ordered her crew to shut down all power and drift in space like a dead ship. "This is taking too long," Dr. Su whispered during one of these hiding times. "While we're playing hide and seek, those people are dying." "I know," Min whispered back, "but if they catch us, we can't help anyone." Meanwhile, Engineer Tay was still working on the life support systems. Without power, he had to work by flashlight. His hands were cut from sharp metal edges, and his back hurt from crawling through tight spaces. But he kept working. "The air mixture is wrong," he muttered, looking at his calculations for the 100th time. "If I make it safe for Zephyrians, it becomes poison for humans. If I make it safe for humans, they'll suffocate." Dr. Su crawled over to help him. "What if we don't try to make it perfect? What if we just make it good enough to keep them alive for a few hours?" Tay looked at her. "You mean make it barely survivable? Better than dead?" Tay nodded slowly. "Okay. But they're going to be very sick and very uncomfortable." "They're already dying," Dr. Su said. "Sick and uncomfortable is better than dead." After 5 days of hiding and running, the human ships finally reached Kepler 442b. The planet looked terrible. The red sun was flickering like a candle in the wind. The once blue oceans were frozen solid. The atmosphere was so thin that it was barely there at all. "I'm getting life signs from the surface," reported Communications Officer Hannah. "Weak, but they're still there." Admiral J's voice crackled over the radio. "All ships, prepare for emergency landing. We don't know how much time we have before that sun gives up completely." As the human ships entered the dying planet's atmosphere, everyone knew they were risking everything. Their ships might crash. Their life support might fail. The council might still catch them. But 800 people were counting on them. The ground shook as Captain Jun's shuttle landed on the cracked crystal platform near the last Zephyrian city. The air was so thin he could barely breathe, even with his oxygen mask. The temperature was far below freezing, and his breath came out in white clouds. "Stay close," he told his rescue team through the radio. "We don't know how much time we have." The city looked like something from a dream, but a broken dream. Tall crystal towers that once sparkled in the sunlight were now dark and cracking. Some had already fallen, leaving sharp pieces scattered on the ground. The wind howled through empty streets like a ghost crying. Dr. Su walked beside Captain Jun, carrying a bag full of medical equipment. Behind them, Engineer Tay pulled a cart with translation devices and emergency supplies. The rest of the team spread out, looking for signs of life. "There," pointed Communications Officer Hannah. "I'm reading life signs from that big building in the center." They hurried toward the crystal structure, their boots crunching on ice and broken glass. The building was beautiful, even in its dying state. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that still glowed faintly with blue and green light. Inside, they found them. The Zephyrians were huddled together in the deepest part of the building, sharing what little warmth they had left. They were beautiful creatures, with feathers that shimmered like oil on water and wings that stretched wide even when folded. But they looked so weak, so tired. An old Zephyrian with silver and blue feathers looked up when the humans entered. Her eyes were large and sad, but they widened with surprise when she saw the stranger's dot. Captain June activated his translation device. The machine took a moment to process, then spoke in the musical language of the Zeftians. "My name is Captain June," he said. "We are humans from Earth. We received your distress call. We have come to take you away from this place." The old Zephyrian, who was Elder Vexera, stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke, and the translator turned her words into human language. "Your species, the primitive ones. You came." "For us, yes," Captain June said simply. "We came." All around them, other Zephyrians began to stir. They had given up hope long ago, but now, these strange wingless creatures were telling them they could live. "How many?" Elder Vexera asked. Dr. Sue was already moving through the crowd, checking the Zephyrians with her medical scanner. 812, she reported. "Some are very weak, but they're all alive." Captain June spoke into his radio. "Admiral J, we found them. 812 survivors. We need immediate evacuation." Admiral J's voice crackled back. "Copy that, but we have a problem. The star's radiation is getting stronger. Our ship's shields won't hold much longer. Engineer." Tay was already setting up the portable life support systems they had brought. The machines would create small bubbles of breathable air for the Zephyrians during transport. But there weren't enough for everyone. "We'll have to make trips," Tay said. "Take some up to the ships, then come back for more." "No time," Dr. Sue said, looking at her readings. "Some of these people won't survive another hour. We have to take them all now." Captain June made a decision that would save lives, but risk everything. "All ships, emergency evacuation protocol. Forget safety margins. Pack them in as tight as we can." The next hour was chaos. Human crew members carried Zephyrians who were too weak to walk. The bird people were light but fragile, and the humans had to be very careful not to hurt their delicate bones and feathers. The makeshift life support systems screamed alarms as they were pushed beyond their limits. Engineer Tay ran between ships, fixing problems with tools and spare parts, sometimes just hitting things until they worked again. "This is insane," muttered Captain Min as she watched her cargo hold fill with alien refugees. "We're putting 30 Zephyrians in a space designed for 10 humans." "Insane is letting them die," replied Dr. Sue, adjusting the air mixture for the 100th time, above them in orbit. Admiral J watched the star's radiation levels climb higher and higher. Her ship's shields were already at maximum power, and they were still taking damage. "All ships, we need to leave now," she announced. "The star is becoming unstable." But the evacuation wasn't complete. 50 Zephyrians were still on the surface, including Elder Vexera, who had refused to leave until all her people were safe. "Admiral, Captain June called from the surface. We need more time." "We don't have more time," Admiral J replied, looking at her instrument readings. "That star is going to collapse in the next few minutes." Admiral J looked at her crew. Her chief engineer, Lieutenant Hay, nodded back at her. They both knew what had to be done. "All ships, except the New Dawn, prepare for immediate departure," Admiral J ordered. "Lieutenant Hay, prepare to overload our fusion reactor." "Admiral, no." Captain June's voice came over the radio. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Admiral J said calmly. "Take care of them, Captain." The New Dawn positioned itself between the other ships and the dying star. When Lieutenant Hay overloaded the fusion reactor, the ship exploded like a small sun, creating a shield of superheated plasma that blocked the star's deadly radiation in those extra precious minutes. The last shuttles lifted off, carrying Elder, Vexera, and the remaining Zephyrians. As they fled into space, Kepler 442b's sun finally collapsed, and the planet became a frozen ball of ice. But 812 Zephyrians were alive, flying toward a new home among the stars. 6 months later, Commander Yun stood on the observation deck of New Etheria Station, watching something that had never been seen before in the galaxy. Below him, a city floated in the orange and purple clouds of a gas giant. The city was built from both human metal and Zephyrian crystal, creating structures that were both strong and beautiful. Young Zephyrians flew through the air alongside human children who rode in small flying machines. The bird people taught the humans how to read the wind patterns, while human engineers showed them how to build machines that could work in the thick atmosphere of their new world. "Commander," said Communications Officer Hannah, walking up to him with a message pad, "we're getting another transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to meet with our leaders." Commander Yoon smiled. This was the 5th message from the Council in 2 weeks. Ever since word had spread about the human rescue of the Zephyrians, other species across the galaxy had been talking. Some were impressed, others were angry, but everyone was paying attention to humanity now. "What do they want this time?" Yoon asked. "They're offering us full membership in the Galactic Council," Hannah said. "Trade agreements, technology sharing, military protection. Everything we've been trying to get for years." Yoon looked down at the floating city again. A group of Zephyrian children were teaching human kids how to sing the wind songs that made the crystal towers change color. Nearby, Dr. Su was working with Zephyrian healers to create new medicines that could help both species. "And what do they want in return?" Yoon asked Hannah Reed from her pad. "They want us to follow standard galactic protocols for future rescue operations. Basically, they want us to ask permission before helping anyone else. Tell them we're honored by their offer," Commander Yoon said. "But we're too busy right now." "Too busy doing what?" "Building something better." Just then, Elder Vexera approached. The old Zephyrian looked much healthier now. Her feathers were bright and shining, and she moved with the grace that her people were known for. In her claws, she carried a crystal tablet covered with beautiful symbols. "Commander Yoon," she said, through the translation device that Dr. Su had perfected, "I bring a gift from my people to yours." She handed him the crystal tablet. When he touched it, the symbols began to glow and move, telling a story in pictures and light. "This is the history of our people," Elder Vexara explained. "But we have added a new chapter. The story of the Dawnbringers, those who crossed the darkness of space to bring hope to the hopeless." Commander Yoon felt the weight of the tablet in his hands. It was more than just a gift. It was a promise, a bond between two species who had found something in each other that the rest of the galaxy had missed. "Elder," he said, "we didn't save you to become heroes. We did it because it was right. That is exactly why you are heroes," she replied. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Not danger alarms, but the signals that meant new ships were arriving. Commander Yoon and Elder Vexera hurried to the control room, where the screens showed dozens of ships appearing at the edge of the system. "Are they council ships?" Hannah asked, her hand moving toward the defense controls. "No," said sensor operator Kang, staring at his readings in amazement. They're rescue ships, like ours." The ships were not sleek and powerful like council vessels. They were patched together, rebuilt, and modified, just like the human fleet had been, and they were carrying people, thousands of them. "This is the Crystal Song," came a voice over the radio, speaking in a language the computers had never heard before. "We are the Cathani. We heard about what the humans did for the bird people. We ... we need help too." More voices joined in. The Veltari, whose homeworld had frozen when their son died. The Fergans, who had been cast out from galactic society for refusing to give up their old ways. The Stone Singers from the Rigel system. The Water Dancers from the Vega colonies. Dozens of species that the Galactic Council had written off as economically non-viable or evolutionarily obsolete. They had all heard the story of how humanity saved the Zephyrians, and they had come looking for something the galaxy had forgotten how to give: hope. Commander, Elder Vexera said softly, I think your small rescue mission has become something much bigger. Commander Yoon looked at the screens full of refugee ships, then down at the floating city where humans and Zephyrians worked together to build a new kind of civilization. One that measured success not by profit or power, but by how many people it could lift up. All ships, he announced over the radio. Welcome to the Alliance of Free Peoples, where no one gets left behind. In the months that followed, New Etheria became the center of something the galaxy had never seen before. A government based not on strength or wealth, but on the simple idea that every life had value. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. Technologies that the Council had kept secret were shared freely. The Galactic Council watched from their crystal towers and metal fortresses, calculating and measuring, trying to understand how their carefully ordered universe had suddenly become so chaotic. They had ruled through fear and economics for thousands of years, but they had never faced anything like this before. They had never faced hope. The galaxy had left them to die. Humans had given them life, and from that simple act of kindness, a new age had begun.